There's this segment that Conan's show is most known for, which is Clueless Gamer. And I wonder what it's like just having to edit those segments.
So what's great about cutting gamer is you're usually allowed a little more time. Usually they would film those maybe about a week ahead because it was a little more involved, multiple cameras, a little bit more of a complex presentation in terms of your pictures and stuff like that. It was always a fun balance to figure out how much of a video that you're making about a game versus how much you're just trying to tell some jokes. You know what I mean? And what that balance should be. There's something to be said for when you need in comedic structure, setup very often is very important, if not the most important thing. I'm going to try to go with this. Let me give you an example of something, because it's not a gamer, but it'll make my point. There was a remote that Conan did with Jordan Slansky where they did an escape room. It was called The Detective. An escape room, if you don't know, it's like you go into this room and there's actors and it's all role play and they give you a bunch of puzzles in order for you to escape the room. Really good idea for really good comedy. There was one problem with the piece though. Escape rooms are all written puzzles. Written puzzles on camera are really boring because if you film it in real time, I'm just doing this. Talk to the man who's got the blah, 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 blah. Not very fun on camera, right? But in order to make the jokes about where they were, about what they were doing, you had to get that information. So it's like, how do we make it interesting? Oh, this is where editing can help. So I had the idea. I was like, did we get copies of all the clues? They're like, yeah, they handed me all the pieces of paper. So I scanned all of them in. So while he would be reading them, I would just do like quick flashes of all like the words in like a very old detective style and stuff like that. Really overwhelm the audience because that was the joke. The joke was, this is a crazy amount of information. So he reads all these things and I'm flashing like 80 different pieces of paper. And then at the end of the flash, he just goes, what? And it's a big laugh and stuff. Those are the instances where you can really help. So now Clueless Gamer is the same in that fact that you got to show the game. You got to make it make sense to the audience. So if you're showing a character, you got to tell people who he is and make fun of him because otherwise you're just going, ha ha, funny picture. There has to be a logic to it.
Where do you get your inspiration for how you want to cut certain things to make it more interesting? I think you've said before you like to parody the style of late night infomercials as well.
Crazy Eddie stuff, which is an old style of late night commercials done in New York a number of years ago. There's always like a joy in trying to present things very cheaply because there's a lot of the style of us growing up watching television. A lot of it, then the job for late night sketch editing too has to do with parodies. So sometimes you have to understand different styles and what they're trying to present. I mean, ads were always kind of simple because a lot of you were very Crazy Eddies. But if you're doing a parody of Mad Max, you had to understand what made Mad Max Mad Max. And what does it look like? What does it sound like? A lot of the fun would be figuring these things out and seeing if you can do it like Mad Max, if your piece looked like the Matrix while they're fighting, that sort of thing. Honestly, the most obvious inspiration for some pieces were just the things that they were making fun of. Other than that, when something's really just kind of a sketch, there's really no place to draw from. I always think of things like songs, like when I'm reading the script, like it's kind of, I see where the verse is, I see where the chorus is, I see the parts where you need to punch, and I just kind of feel it like music and just kind of lay it out that way. It's a very hard thing to describe sometimes.
Do you feel like your style has changed from, say, the time when you were editing for puppeteers with Sid and Marty all the way to now?
Sounds so silly to say, but it's true. It's like, I don't think about it too much anymore. One of the main things you can do as an editor is not unlike a painter, not like any other kind of artist, is that you develop your tool set so well that you don't have to think about it anymore. And so the joy of it as you get older, you find joy in different ways, the different challenges of getting something done. Hey, we're going to Haiti. We have 7 days. How do we do it? Hi, there's a global pandemic and we want to be on the air in 7 days. How do we do it? And then, of course, having a crew, trying to relate to them, trying to help them be their best, trying to let them help you be your best. That's a big lesson as you grow. And that was one that took me a while to learn, honestly. Yeah.
And speaking of the global pandemic, when was the first time you heard about it and realized that it would impact what you were doing?
I was trying to think about it and I don't remember when I first heard about it, but I was one of those who, when I did hear about it, because I remember it was like that prior November I was like really sick for like 2 weeks. And so when I heard about the thing, I was like, oh, I already had it. Yeah, that's what that was. And I do remember we started doing bits about it on our show. And then each day it's getting worse and worse. And then my wife and I, this was probably last week of February, first week of March around there. It was on my wife's birthday. We went to Disneyland. It was not crowded at all. We were doing a show, and occasionally you would have hiatus from the show. You would have like 2 weeks off, 3 weeks off, something like that. We were about to take a 2-week hiatus. And I remember I gave everyone the day off in the trailer except myself and our engineer. We were kind of closing up shop, and I looked at the engineer. We were just kind of talking about it. And we're like, I don't think we're coming back. It was just like a feeling. We weren't sure. And then a week goes by, we get the first email. Hey, we're going to take an extra week. Okay, well, third week goes by and we're still sitting at home just trying to figure it out. I want to say it was probably the fourth week where we got the email where they're like, we want to be back in the air. No one can be by each other. How do we do this? And that became this mad sprint of trying to figure out what could we do? How could we do it? What the strategy was. And that took the most brain power of everything to figure out because you're constrained by a lot of things. Pandemic, no one could be by each other. Conan was not technically minded at all, is filming himself. So what does he know how to do? What is he comfortable with? That was one of the first things I established. And he knew Zoom. Like they just started using Zoom, I think like 2 or 3 months before that. And he knew that. That was like, you know, Zoom. All right, well, your interviews are now going to be done on Zoom. So let's start there. And then sending messages to his son to make sure he knew how to film himself during a monologue, you know, stuff like that. Real fun stuff. But then once we got our show in the air, then it was about refining what we're doing, making it a little better. As time went on, things got a little looser. We figured out a little bit better tech. They moved the show to Largo because no one wanted to do it from his house anymore. That got a little better. Then we got our crowds back. Then we're done.
I wonder if there's anything in particular that's happened that was really memorable for you behind the scenes of working on shows like Conan.
A lot of the happiest memories for me were the times where I helped the most. I didn't necessarily know if I was going to, or if I could prove people wrong on things. It's my favorite. There was one piece in particular. Bob Odenkirk came in. He's going to be a guest that night, and they were going to have him do a mock commercial. Real simple studio presentation. It was like Giebel's Peas, and it's like a 3-minute presentation. Talks to an actress. It's one of those like, hi, I'm Bob Odenkirk. When I like to eat Giebel's Peas, you know, that sort of thing. The plan was they were going to film him being terrible, also as a behind the scenes on the thing. So it was like Bob was going to come out, hey, I did this really cool commercial. They show the commercial. And then the plan was after to be like, well, I heard you were kind of a jerk, and to play a clip. Well, they went on for probably about 30 minutes, I want to say, to just doing weird outtakes and stuff. And there became such a panic. I think they got done at 3:45. We were taping at 4:30. And everyone was like, well, I guess that part will be for the web. Like that'll be for digital. And I was like, no. I grabbed it. I was like, it's going to be on air. And I just grabbed it, and no one like believed me. And I just blazed through the thing. And no one believed that I got it done. And then I called in the segment producer who I adored, Dan Ferguson, and he saw it. He was like, holy shit. And then he called Bob in, and Bob took a look, and you know, Bob's a legend, and he liked it. But then he was like, can we make some changes? I was like, yeah, dude, let's do it. And that became like a real, like in the zone kind of thing. He was like, well, if we do this, yeah, let's do it. All right, cool. Well, what if we flip this? Yeah, man, totally. Those are the parts that are unforgettable where you really helped. You really made something better. Because a lot of times, especially when you're working with people of this caliber, sometimes you're kind of relegated. We kind of helped put it together. And sometimes you can really stake your claim and be like, no, like I helped make this. And then occasionally you would be asked to, you wouldn't be asked to, but you'd be welcome to like suggest things. And I got to suggest the cold open to the last Comic-Con, which was like a spoof on Into the Spider-Verse. And I literally suggested it because I saw they weren't doing a cold open. I loved our cold open. And I asked the head writer, he was like, what, you got an idea? I was like, yeah, man, like let's do Spider-Verse. Like, but just like one of my favorite Marvel things. And I said it to him. He's like, Conan, how do we do it? Oh, we need an animation company. Okay. Who? I don't know. Call somebody. All right. And then 4 weeks later, you have this awesome 5-minute animation thing. Then, of course, being able to do all of this and pay for a mortgage and my children. I've been able to reflect past couple of weeks about a lot of this, but I swear my only regret was not being able to enjoy what I was going through more. I did enjoy it. I absolutely enjoyed it, but I wish I enjoyed it more. because I'm grateful that I got to do these things and still raise a family, all that kind of stuff.
I mean, you did the show for 12 years, which is a very long time in the industry. When did you first hear that this show was going to end? How do you feel about it?
Oh, I want to say it was February, March, but I wasn't surprised at this point. It felt like the last couple of years with trains coming to a halt. I think at this point, we only had like a year left on our original deal anyway. So, I mean, it definitely wasn't like a left field type thing. And then you hear the announcement and you just kind of look at everything and go, okay, well, what do I want to do? I climb this mountain. What's the next mountain to climb? And then just try to figure things out from there.
Do you have any advice for people who would love to have a career like you have?
I would say don't try to have a career like mine. Mine was an accident. It was not planned. I was supposed to be a performer on the stage, and now I make videos with sketch comedy players. And I think what you really need is to find it. It's hard to phrase this in a way that doesn't sound remarkably cheesy, but it's to find the thing that makes you you and be able to turn it up 110% to let the people that you want to work for know that you're excited to do so. What I mean by that is I spent years getting booked on talent, but then not succeeding very often. And it was something that confused me until I worked at a visual effects place with a buddy of mine who got me a job there. And I remember being miserable because like no one would talk to me. And it was just kind of boring, honestly. Like outside of the actual work, the work was fine, but like when no one talks to you, it's just kind of like, oh. And I remember one day he pulled me down in the hallway. He was like, cut it out. I was like, oh, what are you talking about? He was like, you look like a jerk. You're like walking around the hallways. You don't talk to anybody. You're looking at the ground. You barely smile. Like, can you just act like you're happy to be here? And maybe like someone will talk to you. And I figured it out because part of the thing, like I said about me, is like I'm a humorless human being. So if I walk into a room, it affects people in a certain way. And I decided after that, because a lot of young people trying to do this for a living, they get obsessed about being fake. That's a big thing. I don't want to be fake. I want to be Hollywood. I want to kiss butt. I want to be me. Well, you got to be nice. So people worry about kissing butt, but there's a way of doing it and being real. So I can't walk into a room and pull off salesmanship. I just can't. It doesn't work. I keep be like, hey, how are you? Nice to meet you. I'm Rob. I'm going to take care of your movie. I'm going to be your editor. Ooh, that kind of thing. Because it's fake. I can't pull it off. But what I did figure out that I could pull off is to be the protector of your project. So if I'm in an interview, that's the way I pitch myself. It's, I will protect your movie. Protect your sketch. I will do it the way you want it. If anyone else messes with you, I got that. And it was a way that I could realistically sell what I can do because it would be true. I'm a big proponent of it's your project. You tell me how you want it. And I'm going to get that done for you. That's also a big lesson, by the way, for people who want to do editing is while you may end up doing pieces that you also direct or write, when you're hired to edit, you're hired to edit for someone. It is their vision, right or wrong, and you're there to guide them. It's not your piece.
How did you figure out that that was your role?
I just tried it in the interviews. Man, I would tell fake stories all the time. It was almost like it's a psychosis, but I would just try different things in the interviews. And it was like some short film and some producer came in during the interview and kind of butted heads with the director and left. And director kind of looked at me. I was like, oh, what's up with that? And he kind of told me what was going on. I was like, dude, I got you, man. Don't worry about it. We'll do what you want. And I got it like right there. He was like, yeah, you're the one. Okay. And the next one, I just took that attitude. Really, after every interview, I try to reflect on what right, what wrong. Because to me, perspective is much more important than facts when it comes to like interviews or anything. It's like, how did you see me? Because an interview is really based on like, what can I convince you that I can do? So perspective is everything. So down to the shirts I would wear in an interview. Wear the blue shirt, brings out my eyes and makes me friendlier. I mean, it's all little things like that. You learn them over time. You try stuff. People are so deathly afraid of getting everything perfect every time. I'm not afraid to go to a job interview and just bomb. I've been around long enough that I think I can bare minimum do a decent job every time I go out there now, but if there's something I want to try, I'm not afraid to do so.
And before we wrap that, I would love to talk about your family, your daughters, because you're very passionate about them. Your oldest daughter was born in 2010 and she has arthrogyposis. I wonder if you could share a bit about what that means. Yeah.
For saying it right, first off, that's a rarity. So my oldest daughter was born with arthrogyposis, multiplex congenital, type A myoplasia, where the easiest way to make people understand is she was born with stiff joints. So when she was born, her arms were completely straight. You could barely find her elbows. Her legs were crossed and you could not straighten them. So she's had 12 surgeries at this point on different joints to either loosen them or just anything that we got her to the point where she could walk, which she can now with the use of orthotics. And she's also nonverbal. Once we got her into a place where she was kind of on her path, we started thinking about adding to her family. And we had this idea in our head. I won't be able to explain it like it in a wonderful way, but here's the basics. Was if you have a bunch of kids and one of them is into soccer and plays soccer after school, or they got to go to practice, which means you got to pack all your kids into the car because they can't be left alone. Got to go to soccer practice. Well, wouldn't it be great if all your kids played soccer? So we figured we had a really good medical team for my daughter, and we figured out that we could handle more. So we looked into adoption, and we had adopted our second child, also a daughter, from China. And 3-4 years later after that, we adopted our son from China. And my second daughter and my son also have special needs. They are verbal.
What is it like being the parents of three children who would need more assistance than some children might? I mean, a lot of parents would probably look and go, but I can barely look after myself, let alone three children who need so much input from me.
I think I hear this sort of thing a lot. People downplay their own resolve on things. Everyone's more capable of doing more than what they think they can do. I mean, it's your family. Like, what else are you going to do? Or just really the choice is then you could just be bad at it, which like I didn't want to make that choice. You know what I mean? I think that the ball game changes for everybody according to their circumstances. I think that as challenging as our oldest can be with being nonverbal, there's also an ease in our purpose, our why for her is that our priority is for her to be happy. And once we figured that out, a lot of things came easier. I mean, there's certainly other conditions and other things on this planet that would scare us, that we would not be up for. But we found after going through everything we went through the first time around that we were pretty decent at it and we were able to do more. And so we did. The best way I can describe our situation is one of my favorite stories, my oldest. After one of her major surgeries, we worked in therapy for a long time to help her to express what she would have. One of the big worries was she had a stomach ache. How was she going to tell us? If she broke her leg, how was she going to tell us? So on and so forth. So she speaks on the iPad. She uses a program called Prohibited. And that's how she communicates. She communicates what she wants, where she wants to go, what she wants to eat. So we worked with her to identify body parts, head, stomach, eyes, ears, all that kind of stuff. So she really never used it casually, whereas almost everything else we would work on. I want chocolate milk. I want to go outside. I want to go to the pool. She can express all those, no problem. So one day we get a call from the school. The school says, Ellie's crying a lot. And she keeps saying on her iPad, head, stomach, head, stomach, head, stomach. We're like, oh, all right. Well, I'll come get her. Yeah, absolutely. So we go to the office, bring her out in a wheelchair. She seems all right. Like she's not giving any kind of indication that she's sick or anything like that. And the lady brought her out. She's like, yeah, she keeps head, stomach. She was crying. I was like, go ahead. So load her up in the car. And she puts on her Yo Gabba Gabba, favorite TV show. Then she starts laughing, like really hard. I was like, what are you laughing at? And I started looking at her and I was like, you just faked being sick, didn't you? And she starts laughing really hard. And I was like, good for you. So she got out of going to school, just like any other kid. She just did it in her way. And that's the real difference with all of this. We're hitting all the same marks as everybody else. We're just doing it in our own fun way. My youngest talks her ears off. He's the sweetest kid in the world. Loves Harry Potter, loves swimming, loves making friends, loves playing video games already because it's a pandemic and not much else to do. And in our middle child field, she loves games. She loves the iPad. She loves manga. She's a great artist. She makes small pieces of art. She loves small models, like little chairs and little tables.
She drew the
Yes.
substance once. It was so good.
I know, I know. Like she keeps doing these things lately. And she shows me, you're like, you did that. It's not a doubt of her talent. It's like, just like, man, I could barely draw a stick figure. So yeah, that's the absolute best way I could describe it all. We're playing the same game as everybody else. We're just playing in a different ball field. That's all it is.
Do you have any advice for people who are thinking of perhaps adopting a child with physical challenges?
Be absolutely sure that the challenge is something you're up for. Be absolutely sure that you are aware that when you adopt, that there may be more challenges that you won't be aware of. And it is no different than when you have a pregnancy. It's no different. What if my child can't walk? What if my child can't see? What if my child can't speak? What if they can't hear? What am I going to do? Ask yourself the same questions, because the game's no different. Just because you're handed a file doesn't mean that all the information's in the file. The kid is still young. There was never any difference. When I met Fiona, I just knew she was my daughter. And when I met Colin, I knew he was my son. There was no hesitation. I mean, hell, when we remember the file they gave Fiona, because our first adoption, I mean, we didn't know. It's like, how do you know when they're your kid? And one of the things in her file was they said she tattletales on all the other kids in the orphanage. We just found that hilarious. And we're like, yeah, that's the one. And I just love that so much. So I love my kids.
Well, thank you so much, Rob, for your time and sharing everything. I normally love to end all of my interviews with these questions. So the first one is this: do you feel like you have found your why?
No, and that's okay, because if I'm doing things right, it shouldn't be about my why anymore. It should just be about my children.
What kind of legacy do you want to leave behind?
Oh, legacy. Wow. I'm not a huge fan of the show, but you know the show Doctor Who? I'm not an anti-fan. I just haven't watched it that much. But there's a phrase that I think I saw in a meme or something. I just thought it was just so lovely. It was just like, we're all stories in the end. Just make yours a good one. There was a lot of comfort in that phrase to me. And I think if, when I'm done, if more people, just can't please everybody, but if more people thought my story was a good one than not, then I'll have done a good job.
And what do you think are the most important qualities of a successful person?
Choice. Absolutely knowing what you want, willing to be wrong, but going for it anyway, without hesitation and without fear. Well, I shouldn't say without fear, because there's always fear. But I think without hesitation is very important.
And where can people go to find out more about what you're doing?
I'm on most of the social things. Hannah Robert James Ashe. That's ASHE. Other than that, hopefully be out of show soon. Hire me, people, if you're listening.
Is it hard to transition between late night shows?
Well, I will say our show was kind of an anomaly, because I think in 12 years, we only had, in post, man, we only had a turnover in like 3 or 4 people, which is very unusual for any show. But the tendency for any of these positions is it's kind of like a pirate ship. Like, this is a bad comparison, but it's the only way I can describe it, that it's like you'll get the first mate job when the first mate dies. You know what I mean? So there's this sense of, and people get this wrong sometimes when it comes to Hollywood. It's like they go like, well, do you need an editor? No, we got editors. We have them. We don't need more. We'll call you if one is not available. But most things in Hollywood, really, it's about being the simplest solution to a need for someone, and to be there at the right time. I became the lead of Conan after Dan Dome because I was already working there, and it was already a lead of another show. So I was the easiest solution in the moment. So in terms of jumping into the other show, there's got to be a need, first off. Probably much easier to jump on a new show that's just starting up. So we'll see what happens there.
For people who are looking to break into Hollywood, quote unquote, and they don't have any connections, how do they even start?
I was a big believer, and this helped me. Like, no one wants to work for free. And I understand that. But I found a compromise, which was to work for charity, especially in Hollywood, because one thing I figured out pretty quick was the people running the charity events were Hollywood people, and Hollywood people who were actually doing stuff, like real shows. That's a big piece of advice for me, is like work for people who are doing things, like real things. So if there was an event for a children's hospital, let's say, like you would get a chance to do work for 3 or 4 people who are actually in the know, would be grateful when you were done and more prone to recommend you to something after. That led to a lot of career improvement for me. And it was good for the soul after you completed the work. It was stuff that people actually wanted to do. The people you're working for is stuff that they actually wanted to do. And most people, especially, were just so grateful that you helped. It just made you feel good about what you're doing.
Do you still feel that it's necessary for people to move to Hollywood to get those opportunities?
Yes, but almost no. We're close. We're so close. And I do wonder in the future too, because like I could see myself getting to the point where I don't need to live here anymore. This is about knowing enough people that are still going to call you anyway. But I wonder about that breaking in process, how that would work when you don't live here. I don't know. Maybe it's a thing, maybe it's not. I will say once ingest, so recording to whatever media your camera's recording to, once that's on the cloud, then it doesn't matter anymore, because mostly it's an issue of getting people media. And that's the reason why you have to be in Hollywood. But once that goes away, and we're close, the tools are already starting. So that makes it probably 3 to 5 years away. But honestly, I don't know. I'm just kind of bullshitting you. Sorry.